have you been told about this deal?
Well, I've been assured by the federal government that they intend to meet their commitment to Australia's national security and South Australian industry, that we will be building an AUKUS submarine here in South Australia. That, of course, has been a bipartisan position that we've seen from the former federal government and certainly the current one, and we look forward to hearing the details in coming days.
So did you know that we were going to buy these submarines? Were you given any forewarning?
Look, I was assured by the federal government that they were striving to meet the capability gap from the end of the life of the Collins-class submarine and the new AUKUS submarine here in South Australia. I think we all accepted that was a need which needed to be addressed, but in no way would that compromise the commitment of the Commonwealth to build nuclear submarines right here in Adelaide and to get on with that task ASAP. We accept that there is going to be a build-up to that enterprise because, in effect, when it comes to the nuclear submarine project, we're starting from scratch, but that work has to start as quickly as possible if we're serious about our nation's security and the understanding that sovereign capability is a key component of delivering that.
Sure. So what commitments have you been given exactly about the local manufacturing component and the timing?
Well, first, put simply, that we will be building a nuclear submarine here in Osborne, South Australia, ASAP. And that means the work's got to start this year when it comes to building up the workforce capability that will be required to deliver that. But just as importantly, the infrastructure work that will be required at Port Adelaide in South Australia and actually to start that process. So we expect to see action on the ground sooner rather than later, and I keenly await, along with the rest of South Australia, and indeed all those who care about our sovereign capability nationally, to see those details hopefully early next week.
Okay, early next week. Wow. Okay, that's pretty soon. So when do you expect this build-up to start? I know you say ASAP, but have you got any idea what you'll actually be building and how many workers it will require?
Yeah, so the commitment from the federal government, which we expect them to honour, and I've got no reason to believe that they won't, is that we'll be building a nuclear submarine here in South Australia. Now, I think we all accept and understand that when it comes to a nuclear submarine, there will be sharing of componentry between nations, AUKUS partners, the best example of which, of course, is the nuclear reactor itself that will go into the submarine. That will come from overseas, but we hope and aspire to an opportunity that there will be components built here in South Australia that will contribute to an AUKUS submarine overseas. In terms of the size of the workforce, this is the single biggest undertaking that's ever been delivered from our national government ever in the history of the nation. So we are talking about thousands and thousands of workers, direct employees, anything up to 5,000, let alone all of the indirect employees associated with that. So this is a big undertaking. I don't think Australians should be under any misapprehension around the size of the contribution to our local economy here in South Australia, but also nationally, that this will deliver.
Oh, sure. That is a massive contribution to the local economy. But how do you justify this? I know you're the South Australian Premier, I get that, but we've seen in the past that locally built might not be the best option when it comes to cost blowouts and actual expertise. How do you marry that? How do you say to the Australian taxpayer that, you know, yes, we're going to provide all these jobs in South Australia, but it comes at an extra cost? Are you honest and upfront about that?
Oh, look, the simple reality is this. If we have a continuous pipeline of work for our naval shipbuilding enterprise here in South Australia, then that dramatically reduces the cost. And part of the challenge that we've had in the past is that every project has been stop, start. And as soon as you lose that continuity, then it starts to compromise the cost. Now, the best example of that would be the Air Warfare Destroyer program. The cost of the third Air Warfare Destroyer was demonstrably smaller than what was the cost of the first. If we have just continued the pipeline of work, then the cost comes down, and that's the experience overseas as well. But more than that, this is about our nation's security, and sovereign capability is central to that. We know necessarily that amongst the AUKUS partners, we want to increase the capability of producing nuclear submarines. That's not just in our interest as a country, but also in the interest of the UK and the US, we need a fourth production line, and that should be somewhere else outside of the US and UK.
But Premier, when you talk about sovereign capability, this doesn't provide that. It's not like we can build a submarine on our own, and that's really never going to happen, is it?
Well, of course, sovereign capability is best derived from having a workforce that is capable of building nuclear submarines, high-quality frigates, and we have that capability, or we have the ability to deliver that here in South Australia. So it's in our national interest to be able to do that. Now, of course, like I said, the nuclear reactor will come from elsewhere, but the ability to build a submarine ground up will be happening here in South Australia, and that is in our long-term interest as a country, which is why it enjoys, I think, the support of both sides of politics, and that's certainly true here at home in South Australia.
Yeah, certainly. Just one more question about the cost, because when you have a local component, it means it takes, months, if not years, for local manufacturers to be trained by US counterparts, I imagine, and there is an extra cost to that. So is that just the reality?
Yeah, it is the reality, but only in the initial years. Once we have developed the capability here in South Australia, we have that long-term continuity of work, then that allows the private sector to invest in accordingly, and we start to see startup costs amortised across the length of the project. And there is no longer project than building nuclear submarines.
Yeah.
There is no nuclear submarine production line that started anywhere in the world and stopped. Our task is to get started, and then from that moment onwards, we'll have that capability to deliver submarines at an efficient price, but with a high capability in the nation's interest.
Okay, one last question, Premier, if you will. These projects always seem to be delayed. Do you accept that there might be a delay when you have that skills transfer in the initial stages that will be needed between the three countries? And, do you have any idea when we're going to get this first submarine built?
Well, the news of the Commonwealth having a plan to plug the capability gap, I think, speaks to the fact that it's got a serious long-term strategy about how we're going to deliver our sovereign capability on submarine production. Let's wait and see the details before we start making judgment calls about whether that plan is too ambitious or not ambitious enough. But for one, I have every confidence that the Commonwealth will meet its commitment. We'll be building nuclear submarines here in Adelaide. It'll be done in an organised way that's in our nation's long-term interests.